No, just one spot. He doesn't have a sign.
I did some time of maintenance.
Who's managing the? Wait, look, that to be done. Okay, all right.
How you doing? Oh, thanks. How are you? So, you can see what I'm doing. I appreciate it.
I saw most of the time. Remind.
Yeah, I have part of my notes. Make sure you hit the message sheets.
And then I'll take them and give them to you. Send them to all the SBC.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, do you guys want to slide so that you're not blocked by the podium? So again, on this side so you're not blocked by the podium. Everybody can see you. It'd be great. You should, right? Sure, that'd be perfect. Thank you. Say again?
Is that correct? Sir, we have not met since right door.
We have.
Where?
I think we did last one.
Yes,
You know how I know?
oh,
But at that time, we shook hands. Wherever we went.
it's a work in progress.
So, thanks for the opportunity.
No, I appreciate you coming out. Yeah, I'm so glad that you know, you had a wish was not here. I heard a lot of great things about this. You have a lot of
This is a big break.
all right now. Where's Chaps? Yes, sir. I'm doing well. How are you? Good to see
You guys ready? Yes, sir. So the only reason I would ask you to use my account is for the physical launch. The only way Facebook will hear us is if it's the opportunity. Yes, it does. There is a battery pack.
you. Where's the time so I know?
Secure is my timekeeper. I will. He's supposed to be someone.
All right, we're about 3 hours.
Ready? What's up? He's in the backpack there, man. Chief Turner's backpack.
All right, good morning, everybody. Let's get started. Good morning and welcome to the 2024 Suicide Awareness Prevention event hosted by NAVAIR. We're grateful to see so many of you here today. Suicide is a serious issue that can touch anyone's life, and your presence demonstrates a collective commitment to open conversation, education, and support. Today's event is dedicated to raising awareness, learning resources, and most importantly, letting each of you know that you're not alone. My name is Chief Hughes, and I'm one of the suicide prevention coordinators here at the command, along with Chief Hart and PS1 July, who are running around helping us this morning. Feel free to reach out to us if you ever need anything. A quick rundown of the agenda for this morning. We have an invocation by Chaplain Lieutenant Alvarado, some opening remarks by Captain Price Jordan, and words from our guest speakers, Mr. Greg Roos and Lieutenant Commander Patrick Baker. Then we have a Q&A panel where you'll have the opportunity to ask questions from any of the guests here, and then we'll close it out with the benediction. Up first, she joined the Navy as an air traffic controller in 1986. She's been assigned to NAS North Island, Whiting Field, Pensacola, Whidbey Island, USS John C. Stennis, VP-46, FRC West, VR-54, VR-59, the Logistics Support Wing in Fort Worth, Texas, here at PMA 207, and now she's the commanding officer for Military Personnel Directorate for NAVAIR. Please give a warm welcome to Captain Price Jordan.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Is it not on?
Not on.
Let's try this again. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Thanks. I was laughing at Chief Hughes. He said that I joined the Navy before he was even born. So that lets you know how long I've been around. I have loved this Navy and everything that it stands for and what we strive to do. So I just wanted to take an opportunity. I won't be before you long, but I wanted to say, first of all, good morning, welcome, and please know that we are so grateful that you are able to take time out of your busy day to join us here today. For our virtual audience, also welcome to you. But I do want to give a special shout out to our coordinators for this event, Chief Hughes, Chief Hart, PS1 Jalal. Thank you so much for coordinating this. And also to our community partners, our Fleet and Family Service Center, our American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I don't want to miss anyone. Baltimore and Chesapeake region, our St. Mary's Health Department is also here. Our Advanced Warfighter Department is also here. Branch Medical Clinic is represented as well. Our SAPR and also our chaplain's office. So we have a lot of resources that have come out today to support us in this event. And I hope that you glean information and bring some resources and some tools, because every day our military loses brave men and women to suicide, and each an act of suicide is devastating loss to the family members, to our workforce, to our military, and it certainly impacts our warfare readiness. Over the past 3 years, I will tell you that the Department of Defense has taken great strides and great efforts to combat this issue, along with other issues. But this is one of them that is near and dear to my heart because it hits my family personally when we lost one of our family members to suicide. So I want to take an opportunity to just kind of talk about the lines of efforts that Department of the Navy, as well as our commander, Admiral Chevy, takes very seriously. And we're trying to get after this and to kind of deter anyone from ever having to feel like that there's no help, there's no resources to help them during their difficult times. So those efforts are, one is making sure that we foster a supporting environment, that people feel comfortable if they're having struggles or they're having challenges, that they know that they have resources, but more importantly, they have the support of their command to be able to go out there and get the resources and the help that they need without it being an impact to their career, without it being an impact or a stigma associated with it. The other one is improving the delivery of mental health care. We have always had challenges with the number of doctors and psychologists and psychiatric people in that field and getting the help and the resources in a timely manner. And I'm grateful for Doc Baker being here at the base at the Branch Medical Clinic. He's dedicated to that effort, and it's one of the things that we are doing to make sure that our service members, our civilians, and our contractors are getting the resources that they need. Also addressing and removing the stigma and other barriers to care, revising our suicide prevention and training, and promoting a culture of lethal means safety, right? But we can get access to those opportunities for our service members without it being a detriment or taking a significant amount of time. And those lines of efforts are supported by numerous enabling tasks that will transform NAVAIR's efforts on suicide prevention and awareness. These lines are also in line with the Secretary of the Navy of taking care of their people, taking care of our people initiative, and emphasizes the department's commitment to the well-being of each and one of our sailors, our Marines, Air Force, airmen, our civilian contractors, and all that supports the Department of the Navy as well as the Department of Defense. Today's theme is all about creating hope through action. And I emphasize the action piece of this because we all can play a part in this, and this serves as a powerful call to action and a reminder that there is an alternative to suicide. As Chief stated, right, you're not alone. If you feel like you're having those challenges, please know that you're not alone. There is help. We are here to help and to support you in any way that we can. And for those that are actually assigned to NAVAIR, if you have not had the opportunity to read Mr. Radowski's deputy notes, I encourage you to do so. I did take a couple of notes from his last release on his deputy notes, and it says, I strongly encourage you to take a stance on resilience. He states resilience is not just a personal attribute. It's a critical component of an organization's culture that helps individuals and teams overcome difficulties and accelerate their success. At its core, resilience serves as a driving force that enables us to overcome challenges, for us to learn, and for us to grow. It propels us forward, ensuring we emerge stronger, wiser, and better prepared for what lies ahead. And it certainly also ties into NAVAIR core values, which means we start with the fleet, focusing on the outcomes that matter to the warfighter. We change the game by being bold, challenging those assumptions, being innovative, and learning and improving. And we win with inclusion and respect. We treat our teammates with dignity and respect always, and we always support our teammates. So what I leave with you is we must foster trust and connection in our workplaces and our communities under our care. We must integrate prevention in all of our lines of effort, and we must reach out to those who are struggling and make it easier to seek the help that they need. Taking care of our people is a sacred obligation for each and every one of us, and we will continue to undertake it with the resolve and moral clarity that our teammates deserve. So it is my hope that by the time this training is over, that you will leave here with more awareness, understanding of the resources available to you, and also to take that back to your family, to your coworkers, and to anyone that you may find in need. And finally, I want everyone to know that it is okay. It is absolutely okay for you to ask someone, whether it be your supervisor, your family member, your friend, your coworker, are you okay? And if they're not, these are the resources that we have available to you. So thank you, Chief. I appreciate you guys coordinating this event. I appreciate our panelists, our community resources, and collaborating with us here at NAVAIR, and we're going to get after it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. I realized I did things a little bit out of order. I updated my agenda, but not my speaking part. So, Chaplain, can you please give us the invocation, please? Thank you.
If able, would you mind standing on your feet, please? Let us pray. Almighty and gracious God, we come before you with thanksgiving in our hearts for giving us life, for giving us the opportunity to come together as one Navy to learn about this topic of suicide prevention. Lord, we mourn with those that mourn, and we lift up those that are hurting right now, either because they have lost a loved one or because they are considering suicide. So we pray that you bring comfort and peace to all of them, and also that you give us the strength, the will to engage in these conversations and to prevent suicide. So God, we pray that you bless our speakers today, give them wisdom, give them the words that we need to hear. And also we pray that you bless the meal that has been prepared for us to enjoy. We pray all this in your holy name. Amen. Amen. Maybe seated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for mentioning the food as well. There is food in the back. Please feel free to go grab some food while you're listening to our speakers. Also, there are muster sheets on each of the tables, so this does count for your suicide prevention GMT for the month of March. Each of those muster sheets has a UIC associated with it, so if you had not already done so, please make your way around to muster. Without further ado, our first guest speaker. Mr. Greg Roos serves as a volunteer with the Maryland chapter of American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. His focus areas include suicide prevention, education, advocacy, and coalition building. Mr. Roos retired from the Marine Corps in 2007, having served 30 years in combination of operational staff assignments, and then he worked in the defense industry through 2016. He's a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, Naval Postgraduate School, U.S. Army War College, and Salisbury University. He currently works part-time as a mental health professional at MedStar St. Mary's Hospital. Mr. Roos is an active community volunteer supporting the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Healthy St. Mary's Partnership, and the Rotary Club of Lexington Park. Please help me give a warm welcome to Mr. Greg Roos.
Good morning. It is a pleasure. You feel old? Yeah, it's all relative, right? I enlisted in 1972. Okay. Great Lakes. That's okay. The old Navy, the old Corps, and all that other stuff. Marine Semper Fi. It's a pleasure to see you. So, how do I identify? I'm a Marine. I'm a designated naval aviator. I'm a volunteer. I'm a community member. I'm also a suicide loss survivor, and that's what kind of brought me to this work. So we're going to chat a little bit about that. And you talked about hope. I am most motivated because this is a good news story. We are making progress. We are absolutely making progress. The Navy in 1972 didn't have a mental health playbook. We did not have suicide prevention coordinators. We didn't have a clue. We weren't talking about this subject matter. So the fact that you're having this event and hosting this event, and I thank you, and it's not Suicide Prevention Month, it's not Mental Health Month. This is just you all opening up your house, your ready room, to discuss a very important subject that does impact readiness. And it's no demographic immune, all right? You can be in this uniform, you can be out of uniform. It's family members as well. So that's a little bit of my messaging today. So if you're not familiar with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, we are a national nonprofit. Our message and our mission is to save lives and give hope to folks affected by suicide. And I'm going to talk some remarks today. I appreciate introductory remarks. I'm also going to reference a little bit of the DoD annual suicide prevention report. And the captain talked about what those lines of operation or focus areas are. So a protective environment, this is representative of that, right? We're doing this today. Reducing stigma, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. What to say, what not to say. We don't say commit suicide. We want to reduce stigma, right? Died by suicide. We don't commit cancer. You don't say a successful or unsuccessful attempt. That's very judgmental and probably leaves a bad connotation. You can say died by suicide if that's in case. Access to lethal means, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in my remarks. And then the other one is improving access to care. Again, suicide prevention coordinators, the folks that we have at the clinic, it is a community effort. And when you talk about hope and action, consider yourselves all deputized because we all have a role to play here. All right, and this is how I'm going to get to it. Where's the timekeeper?
He's in the back, sir.
Can I get a hand on the timekeeper?
You're good. You're good. You're good on time, sir.
I know, but I want to be respectful of my shipmate here. All right, I can go long, and there's chow here, and I can go long, but I won't.
Hey, Greg, if you get closer to the mic too, it's hard to hear you in the back.
Closer to the mic?
Yes, please.
I hate the mic. All right, so here we go. Suicide is a health issue. It's a public health issue. We lost about 49,000 folks in 2022 to suicide. Despite it's complex too, but despite its complexity, we can save lives. We can prevent suicide. And it's similar to maybe heart disease or something like that. Heart disease, there are risk factors, there are warning signs. If we know what those are, we can be alert, we can be proactive, we can get help, we can get interventions. The same thing with suicide or mental health. If somebody's in crisis, if you know what the risk factors are, if you know what the warning signs are, and you can see that in yourself or somebody you care about, then we can take action. And the key theme that you're going to hear is take action. Sitting on your ass and doing nothing is not good. Again, consider yourself deputized, for yourself and for the people that you care about. And this culture, this Navy culture where we have shipmates and we care about one another, is rich. That is a protective factor, all right? So talking a little bit about the numbers, I said 49,000 in our country. Worldwide, there's about 700,000 people a year that take their life by suicide. That's according to the World Health Organization. There's about 280 million folks that have a mental health condition. All right, within, let's say, DOD. Unfortunately, in 2022, we lost a little over 500 folks that were in uniform. We also lost about 137 folks that were spouses or dependents. Of that, 18, there were 37 folks that were 18 and younger. So the message there's no demographic immune, right? It can be in uniform, it can be out of uniform, it can be a family member. I want to hit the drum there a little bit about lethal means. Nationally, in our country, a little over half the folks that die by suicide use a firearm. For the DOD and veterans, it's more like 70%. As a matter of fact, for those dependents that took their lives, 60% of those folks died by suicide using a firearm. So the message of safe storage, access to lethal means, especially if you're in crisis, your judgment's impaired, is important. So that's something to consider. What I want to talk about is with each of those losses, it impacts a community. I'm sorry for your loss, it affected your family. It affects squadrons, it affects workplaces, it affects communities. And the important thing is you are not alone and there is help. And it's important to talk about this subject, and we're doing that today. So I look forward to learning from all of you as well. So what AFSP does, that's American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, we fund private research, we support survivors, and we provide education, and we also do some research, fund the research. So based on that, I'm going to make some comments. Why do people take their lives? You know, that's kind of the money question. And you're going to find out there's no real one reason that somebody might take their life. It's normally a combination of things that come together that puts somebody in a state of hopelessness and despair. And it can be any number of those things. And I'm going to talk about some of the risk factors. I'm going to talk about some of the warning signs. First and foremost, one of the risk factors might be a mental health condition, right? But that's not the only reason, but there could be physical differences like traumatic brain injury or a change to someone's brain and how it operates as far as form and function and resiliency. I know Doc's going to talk about that. So there's physical differences, but on the mental health side, depression and anxiety are certainly in the mix. Something else as far as considering is what you put in your body. Sometimes people that are having a mental health condition are not being treated, they can self-medicate, and that might be with substance use. It's a substance use disorder. And they are not mutually exclusive. So that can exacerbate. On the physical side, a lack of sleep or a traumatic brain injury or chronic pain can put somebody in a place of hopelessness or despair. So I think anybody's at risk. We're going to talk a little about what some of those risk factors are. The risks are characteristics or conditions that are enduring over time, as opposed to a warning factor that might be something a little bit more acute or in proximity. So I'm going to talk a little about the risk factors. Health, we talked about the mental health. I want to talk about historical factors. Historical factors might be there's a family history of suicide. Might be history as far as what someone experienced, sexual trauma. It might be a suicide loss. It might be childhood abuse. It sucks to acknowledge, but sometimes young people, they can be physically, sexually, or emotionally abused. And if that's not treated and that's not addressed, that can put somebody in a place of increased risk over time. Environmental factors. Environmental factors include access to lethal means. Do you have firearms in your home? Are they safely stored? Other environmental factors can be the virtual environment, social media. Are you exposed to that? Environmental factors for this group include a deployment, a PCS, leaving the Navy, getting into this uniform instead of that uniform. And the comment I make on that is, it just doesn't affect you, it affects your family members as well. And you need to talk about all that stuff, because each of those moves, each of those deployments, each of those transitions, you in uniform, you may have the supports, you may have TAPs, you may have fleet and family. Consider what your spouse or your children have, and are you talking to them about those transitions and how it affects them? So this is a subject that's important to talk about and at least acknowledge. Other stressful factors that can affect your environment might be relationships. It could be a relationship here at work. Maybe this has just been an enduring stress. It could be a dynamic relationship with your partner. And then, that wears on you as well. So any of those things are important. If someone takes their life, they may point to the fact that, well, you got fired, or you got divorced, or you got out of the Navy, or that was it. Maybe a culminating catalyst or trigger. Everybody kind of looks for, what was that one thing? And as I said a little while ago, it's not that one thing. There might be other things that are ongoing. So if somebody took their life, whether it was because of a divorce or because they got fired. A lot of people get divorced, a lot of people get fired, but they don't take their life. So what else might be going on? There may have been a history of a mental health condition. There may have been drinking and drugging going on. There may have been other things going on under the surface. So I just wanted to let you know how important it is to be aware of that. And also acknowledge what protective factors are. I would say our Navy, our Marine Corps, is a tremendous culture and a supportive one that is a protective factor. Taking care of your physical health, taking care of your mental health, taking care of your spiritual wellness is important. All those things are protective. Any source of strength, anything that's going to dissuade you from taking your life is positive. That's a protective factor. Wingmen, shipmates, whatever it might be, we have a role to play. If you need help, please ask. Oftentimes people that are struggling don't feel they're worthy of help. They might have a difficult time asking for help. It's not a manhood issue. It's not a Semper Fi issue. We all need help. We all need help. And it's not just okay, it's courageous. It's the right thing to do. It's the right way to lead. In my Navy, in our Navy, we had a chief of naval operations take his life. What's up with that? In 1976, when I was a second lieutenant, platoon commander, I had a lance corporal at 10. What brought me to this work? I had a Marine take his life 18 years ago in between deployments. Are we making progress? Yes, we are, because we're talking about this. And I do this work in honor of those folks and others, all right? And what's treatment look like? I'm not going to talk on what Doc does, but I just want to make people, because sometimes people don't know this. I see people in my part-time work that still believe mental health treatment is like one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Not the case. And that would dissuade anybody from wanting to say, yeah, I need some help. It can be talk therapy. It can be talking to somebody. It can just be sitting with somebody. It can be medication. It can be a combination of those things. It can be outpatient, it can be virtual, it can be in person. The message is, the menu is large. The alternatives are many, and it'll be it's for you. It's tailored for you, what works for you. And so be aware of that. Coming back to lethal means, for people that are struggling, maybe might not know it, but you can see something going on. The most important thing we can do is prevent them from accessing lethal means in that time when they're in crisis or when their judgment is impaired. Maybe they're drunk. Maybe they're just in such a depressed mood that their judgment's impaired, and they're impulsive and they're agitated. And that's why it's so important to keep an environment safe. It can be from medications, it can be from sharp objects, but again, I'm beating the drum on firearms for today. So access to lethal means, and I'll credit this base in particular, your base armory can accommodate personal firearms. No questions asked. There's a process, but that's good. And there's also ways you can safely store them out in the community if you're interested in doing that as well. Okay, so the action word. What can we do about it besides come here and listen to us and eat the pizza and grab some buttons? You can be aware of this subject matter, and you can have and take the initiative to talk to somebody. So this conversation is most important. I will tell you, I have a lot of stuff over there on our table. I'll point out this one pamphlet on Talk Saves Lives. It is essentially the framework of my comments today. And this is risk factors, warning signs, protective factors, what to say and what not to say, and also resources on the back. But you can see along the side here, it says take action. So again, I'm going to encourage you to grab a pamphlet because I got hundreds of them, and you can take action when you see the opportunity. And I'm going to beat that drum a little bit more too. So that conversation is you're going to look for the warning signs. I'm going to talk what those warning signs are. You want to reach out to somebody, and you want to keep them safe and seek some help. Okay, I'm not asking you to fix them. Please don't. I'm asking you to help them get help, connect them. So what are the warning signs? Warning signs are often what people say, how they behave, or their mood. All right, now there's no checklist here. There's no 4790, there's no NATOPS, there's none of that. So you gotta kind of trust your gut on this one. What people say, and sometimes it might be, I just want to go to sleep, but I don't want to wake up. I might as well jump off the bridge. You know, I just feel like I'm a burden. People might say it sometimes jokingly. Sometimes they might say it in a text. I want you to take them seriously. You don't have to call them out in front of your posse, but listen to what people say. The words matter. It might be an unbearable pain. And again, they may say this and they may feel so worthless that they don't deserve help. I mean, that's despair. I'm going to take a moment. What might be the mindset? Because if you're healthy, and God bless, I'm glad you are, you might not have an appreciation of what it might be like to be in this type of pain. Think of the worst pain you've ever had. Childbirth, blowing out a knee, pick it. Trigeminal neuralgia. I didn't know what that was until I had it. Pain, baby. Think of that worst pain, and then think about how well you were able to have any type of a logical, cognitive process going on. At that moment of that intense pain, it can be physical and emotional pain, your judgment is probably impaired, and you might be looking to get any way out of that. And what happens is you get target fixation on getting out of that pain. And that is when somebody is at the greatest risk. And that is when, if they could, they would probably ask for help. If not, we have to recognize that and extend that help. And that particular point also is when we want to make sure they're safe and they don't have access to lethal means at that moment, that crisis moment. So that crisis is oftentimes, and again, no checklist, and everybody's crisis is different. Your crisis is different than mine, and we might define them differently. No judgment, you respect that, all right? So that's what people might say. I kind of rambled on that one. Behavior. Maybe more increased risk-taking behavior, drinking more, drugging more. Could be behaviors like sleeping. Sleeping too much or sleeping too little, and sometimes the same person. I can sleep all day. I'm still tired. That's something that's going on. Acting recklessly. Let's see, withdrawing from activities. For me, that's a big one. When you isolate and withdraw, that should be on your caution panel. Because when they probably need the support the most and the help the most, if they don't feel worthy of it, they withdraw. Again, that sense of I'm a burden, you'd be better off without me. How about mood? Mood can be apathy. Oftentimes people that are suicidal are ambivalent about living. Part of them wants to live and part of them wants to die. They're kind of on that balance scale. So it's important to watch for that apathy. And this is a change in behavior, perhaps. In particular, Doc might lean into it within the last couple of weeks. If it's not characteristic for you, then that's a change. It can be agitation. I get pissed off in a nanosecond at nothing. I'm sad. The mood. Anxiety, where I'm often pretty chill. Now I'm anxious about everything. Likewise, it can be all this feeling of euphoria. I feel great. In that particular case, maybe somebody has said, okay, I've made a decision. I see an off-ramp, and I'm just tracking that way. So again, pretty complex, very complex. Again, no checklist. So what's the answer? I'm going to give you the answer. It's a simple one. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. If the hair stands up, if you think, maybe I should, that's enough to say you should. Trust your gut. And not only that, if I can compel you, assume you're going to be the only one. Because there's a number of reasons you wouldn't have that conversation. I don't want to upset you. You're not in my chain of command. I don't want to piss you off. I'm afraid of the answer. I don't want you to get mad at me. None of those things matter. Again, we're saving lives. We're bringing hope. At a minimum, they're going to know you care about them. And I hope we care about one another. The fact that you're sitting here today kind of endorses that. So when you reach out, there are a couple things to do. There are a couple things not to do. And this is not intuitive, especially for those men and women of action. You know, we are going to make things happen. We're going to make magic. I think your opening remarks were wonderful. I should have been writing them down. You're going to listen. You're going to reach out. And you're going to let somebody tell their story. Listen without judgment. Offer care. Offer compassion. And this is sometimes different than what we might do when we're in uniform, when we kind of make things happen. You're not there to fix it. You're there to support them. All right. There's a couple other things I'm asking you not to do. You're not going to tell them that life's worth living. That one might not be intuitive, but people that are maybe depressed or suicidal, perhaps they know life is worth living. There's just nothing they can do about that. And I actually had somebody tell me that one time with tears in their eyes after I gave this pitch. It was humiliating to that person when people told them that life was worth living. So respect that one. So listen to the story. You can ask them about suicide and say, you know, shipmate, you haven't been yourself lately. I haven't seen you at the gym. You seem to be drinking a little bit more. I haven't thought of suicide. I mean, you can, and those words don't necessarily roll right off the tongue, but do that and then listen. And if you don't get, you know, at least they're going to respond. I hope they respond. And see where that conversation goes. If they don't, again, they know you care about them and that you're open to them. And you can keep those invitations going. That's a difficult conversation to have with a shipmate or a wingman. I want you to also have that, and this could be perhaps more difficult, have that conversation with a family member. Not something we typically talk about at the dinner table. That's my challenge. That's your opportunity to have that conversation. Again, we're dealing with our own stuff. In today's world, we're kind of moving at the speed of heat. It's good to sit down and listen. You know, without this, and just connect. Be present, especially for those of us that are moving around. And you got stuff going on, I respect that. But for young people, for spouses, for older people, you know, it's kind of bimodal too. Go back to the data. Second leading cause of death for people 10 to 29. The leading cause of death for folks a little bit older than me and higher. I mean, it is, for seniors, significant. If you think somebody, based on that conversation, if you think that something's going to happen imminently, you know, call 911. Otherwise, there are a ton of resources. A lot of them are around here. We're going to talk about some more of them. 988-741-741. You can text. Some people prefer to text. No wrong door. Let's just connect, okay? And that's how things will work. So how am I doing on time? Where's my time guy? I got about, let me see what I got here. Want to be respectful? 5 minutes?
You get 5 more minutes.
I got five. Okay, we're intimate now. I've been yakking a little bit. I just want to get a pulse check. How many people here have been directly or indirectly impacted by suicide? All right, thank you. Sorry for your loss. Reinforces you're not alone. First time I kind of did this, I was a little taken aback that 80% of the folks here seem to have been impacted by suicide. That's the case. Again, the good news is, and I hope next year there's fewer hands that go up. The year after that, fewer hands go up, because there are things that we can do. And when I look back at Lance Corporal EFTA, there were things I should have seen. Here's EFTA. This is 1977. Lance Corporal, turns out he was a fraudulent enlistment. I didn't know that at the time. Didn't assimilate well into the Marine Corps. We were sending him home. His family didn't want him home. We don't want him back. He's yours now. This is EFTA. He's 19 years old. He self-medicates. He gets loaded. He urinates on his bunkmate's rack. They thump him in the squad bay. I find him in the head the next morning. That was then. The good news for EFTA, he went to Bethesda and he got the care that he needed. What were we thinking? Did I see that coming? No. I can tell you also at that time in my life, probably one of the greatest mentors and helpers for this second lieutenant was the battalion chaplain. He was Lieutenant Commander Chaplain Jones. And I had a grunt CO and XO who said, "Roos, you're not a social worker. Giddy up." And the chaps brought me back into his room and he said, "You are a social worker." And I had no clue what a social worker was. Now I am one, a lifetime later. Leader, teacher, mentor, how do you identify? Matters. Be a utility player. Give a shit about yourself and one another. Borda, are you kidding me? Chief of Naval Operations, mid-90s. Seaman to Admiral, a leader. Inspired at the time, this major of Marines, a rock star. He felt disgraced. He took his life because he didn't want to dishonor the Navy. He couldn't live with that. So you can kind of go back. I'm not going to say you can kind of color but you can see some of these things. Major Johnny Rocco, my shipmate years ago. He was a Cobra driver, captain. I had no idea that he was dealing with depression. Of course, he kind of closed the perimeter, and I didn't know it until after he took his life. But chatting with his wife, early on, he had experienced a post-traumatic event. It was a traumatic event. He witnessed in midair, and that affected him. He never got help for that. He didn't talk to the chaps. He didn't go to sick bay. Back in the day, and I'm so proud of our Navy, once a year you'd go to sick bay and you had one thing you'd say: "I'm in excellent health. Give me an upchit, see you next year." We have come a long way. We are doing better for all the right reasons. Johnny Rocco internalized all that until he couldn't do it anymore. He left a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. My honor was doing a eulogy at his funeral. Are you kidding me? That's what kind of brought me to this work. What am I missing? But I'm going to tell you, you can learn all this stuff and you can still miss stuff. I also lost a son 10 years ago to suicide. And Paul volunteered with me with AFSP. We walked. I had this conversation with my son. So I'm going to leave you with this one, just because it's that complex, but it should motivate you that much more. So Johnny Rocco, when his wife asked, "Johnny, are you going to hurt yourself?" His answer was, "I would never do that to you and the boys." When I had my conversation with my son in 2015, I said, Paul, have you ever had thoughts of suicide? He goes, yeah, I would never do that to you and mom. I got this. I got this. He was 35 years old. I do this work in honor of him and Rocco, the chief of naval operations, everybody else, and the people that you lost too. What I didn't ask my son is, do you have a firearm? He lived in Crystal City. He rock star, had a girlfriend, had a good job, loving life. And then he took his life. I had no idea. So again, if I had a do-over, we don't have do-overs, but what we do have is an opportunity. So make new mistakes. You know, we do have an opportunity here to save lives. We do have an opportunity here to bring hope. We have a wonderful community. We have wonderful community partners. You don't do this alone. This is absolutely a team effort. Happy to be part of the team. Welcome you to come over to the table. Look forward to your questions and answers. In the fall, we have a walk. I know you have Laps for Life. It's a great event. The following month, we have our Out of the Darkness walk. It's a great event. And I ask you to support one another and take care of yourselves and take care of our Navy. Semper Fi. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. We're going to take a quick 5 minutes. I noticed a lot of people didn't get up and eat, so please take some time to go get some food. We have a lot of it before we ask Doc Baker to come up on stage. Test.
Yeah, you just gotta get close to it. You just gotta get close to it. It's hard. Good to see you.
As I was eating my chicken. All right. Yeah. We'll save you a seat.
All right, let's make our way back to our seats. Sure, you can say wherever you want, sir.
All you, Pat.
All right, last man standing on the stage. All right, coming to us from Long Island, New York, originally. He's worked in clinical social work. He did Johns Hopkins tour, operational stress control and readiness team for the 1st Marine Corps Division, where he was psychological resiliency for 3,500 Marines and sailors. From 2016 to 2019, he was a mental health advisor for the 3rd Marine Expeditionary Force in Okinawa, Japan. From 2019 to 2023, he did a tour of BUMED, where he was selected for Clinical Social Worker of the Year in 2019. Lieutenant Commander Baker currently serves as departmental head for the Behavioral Health and Substance Abuse Rehabilitation Program at Navy Medicine Readiness and Training Command, Pax River, across the street. Please give a warm welcome to Lieutenant Commander Patrick Baker.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Is this good? Loud enough? Get a little closer. Is it on?
That's them.
Good. Can you guys hear me? Can I pull this off? Just stand here and talk into the mic.
There you go.
Hello, everyone. I am Pat Baker. I'm the Department Head of Mental Health here at PAX. Good morning to everyone in the room, via MS Teams, on Facebook Live. I'm going to talk to you for the next 15 to 18 minutes. My sole objective is to challenge and change the way in which you think about stress. I want you to walk away from here, hopefully thinking a little bit differently, or at least considering your options. All of you in the room, including myself, have received a mental health brief through your course and career in the Navy and life in general. And typically what you see, those briefs tend to be riddled with negative information about stress. Stress costs businesses $300 billion a year. Stress is the enemy. Stress kills, right? Very extreme thinking when it comes to the role that stress plays in our life. You typically see a picture of a person in MARPATs or in uniform otherwise who looks sad, depressed, angry, anxious, you name it. But I'm here to tell you that we are doing that wrong. That is not what stress is. That is not what stress has to be. And that is what I want to challenge here today. I'm going to use a framework. Master Chief is passing along some business cards that sets that framework. I'm going to use the 4 C's of resilience: challenge, connection, commitment, and control. But what I like to do first is develop that common operating picture. So I'm going to give you my definition of stress through a compilation of resources, which is the process by which we respond to a perceived challenge of the body, mind, or spirit. The process by which we respond. You respond and I respond to any given stressor at any given time in our own way. And more importantly than anything else, we control how we respond. That control is important. That is nothing we should ever give up or give away in life, right? The process by which we respond to a perceived challenge, how we choose to think about stress, our perspective, everything we've experienced in life, where we were raised, how we were raised, the neighborhoods we grew up in, our decision to join the military, be alongside affiliated with the DoD, our relationships, you name it, that shapes our perspective, the lens at which we view life through, and more importantly at times, receive information through. That lens, over the course of a lifetime of inevitable stress, can become appropriately bumped, blemished, and cracked over time, and it's our job to reflect, engage in some introspection, use peer engagement or resources to polish that lens as much as we possibly can to ensure that we have the clearest, most unbiased picture that we can have of anything that we may face in life and life in general, right? So that is the framework of stress that we are going to use. Now I want to briefly talk about the stress response. The stress response is an automatic physiological response that is designed to help our body respond to a perceived threat or challenge, right? Rise to the occasion. It is a survival mechanism, evolutionary in nature. It is designed to help us. If a bear, a pack of lions, snakes, whatever it is you're afraid of, I'm afraid of all three, were to walk into this room, we would all have an appropriate fight or flight response, right? In order to fight, fly, or freeze. Hopefully not freeze in that case. It's designed to help us, keep us alive in this case, right? Why do we interpret that as negative? Because of what we feel? I think the problem becomes when we have that same response if we're in traffic. You get an email from a boss in the middle of the night or a phone call, arguing with our spouse, or any other routine life stressor. If we have that same level of response, that is where stress can become a challenge and potentially unhealthy, especially if it's habitual. It happens repeatedly over time. But how you think about stress in those situations is largely what is going to dictate, or at the very least influence, your biological and physiological response. I'm going to help you understand why. So now that we have that common operating picture, let's start with the first of the 4 C's, which is challenge. I'm going to start and lead with a personal anecdote, and I will tell you why I made this change. I'm going to use hate, and it's a strong word, but it resonates here because it's true. I used to hate public speaking, still not the biggest fan. But in high school and undergrad, I used to avoid it as much as possible. When you avoid something, it just perpetuates the problem. Short-term comfort for long-term continuation of a problem, right? So I would try and get out of it at all costs. If I had to go up and public speak, I would go into it with a very negative mindset, right? I can't do this. I'm going to fail. I'm going to embarrass myself. And my body and brain, they believe what we think, right? It believes what we think. So that's going to follow suit. I was a clinical psychology or a psychology major in undergrad, and a professor caught on to what I was doing. And she very thoughtfully, maybe not so much tactfully, but thoughtfully, put me up in front of the class every day. Repeated exposure. Every day I had to get up and public speak. And what I learned to be less worried about what I felt and more worried about what I thought. So as I started to go up in front of class every day, I would think, I've done this before, I can do this again. I'm getting better every time I do it. And that was the natural progression of things. I now stand up here. I walked over here to the Moffett building from the Pax River Clinic, and I was nervous, just like I am before every brief. And what do you think I told myself? I'm nervous because I care. It's my reputation. I care about the material a great deal. I care about you all very much, and I want to do this well. I used what I felt to energize me rather than have it hold me back. How you choose to think about stress, regardless of what the stressor is, matters a great deal. And that is what you can ultimately control more than anything else. Now, why did I do that? There was a study that followed 30,000 adults over the course of 8 years. And all they did was ask people to rate their level of stress and what their perspective of stress was, healthy or unhealthy, good or bad. They then looked at public death records each year and learned who died. The bad news is that people who rated themselves as having higher levels of stress or high levels of stress were about 38 to 43% more likely to die prematurely. But that was only true if they also rated their perspective of stress as negative. That's fascinating. What's even more interesting is you would think that people with the lowest death rate were those who had little or no stress. And they were low, but they weren't the lowest. The people who had the lowest death rate in this study were those who believed that stress was positive, healthy. They embraced stress, even if they rated their stress level as high. That is what triggered my interest in all this. Harvard was also interested. They doubled down on this whole thing. And what they did in an effort to control this more, because there's obviously a lot of confounding variables, is they put people into two groups. Those who were taught or believed that stress was positive, helpful or healthy. Those who believed that stress was negative, it hurt them. They put those two groups through the same social stress test, and they measured their physiological response. The people who believed that stress was bad, unhealthy, or unhelpful, their blood vessels constricted during that stress test, which means they got smaller. People who believed that stress was positive, their blood vessels stayed the same. They stayed relaxed. In some cases, or few cases, they opened up or dilated a tiny bit, which is more equivocal to moments of courage and joy. But we'll focus on the fact that they stayed relaxed. What that means is if you believe that stress is negative and your blood vessels constrict, your body has to work harder than it should to prepare it and fuel it to respond effectively. It's an excess tax. If you believe stress is healthy or helpful, or you go into it with a more embracing mentality, your blood vessels stay the same, which means there's no excess tax. Your heart doesn't have to work any harder than it should. If you think about that over a course of a lifetime of inevitable life stress, stress is a routine part of life. That can be the difference between having a heart attack in your 40s or 50s or living well into your 90s. All by the way you choose to think about it. Something that is well within your control. And like I mentioned earlier, control you should never give to anyone else. That is what prompted me to start to think differently about public speaking and stress in general. And I'll give some other anecdotes as we progress in this brief, but that is why it's so important to challenge how you think about all this. That is the first line of defense. That is your immediate action. Those automatic thoughts that pop into your head. When I asked the question as part of these briefs, I just did it with DQ4 last week. When I asked what their immediate action is, what their first thoughts are, people were kind enough and strong enough to respond with, oh, expletive, right? Or get me out of here, I can't do this, which mean their brain and body are going to follow, right? If you replace that with, I can do this, I can rise to the occasion, I've done this before, I've been through worse, I can leverage this for the future, you have a much more healthy psychological mindset, which sets you up for success. Now let's talk about commitment. This is the idea that you need an individual or group of individuals with whom to share your stress with. Do me a favor and look around to your left and right. For those not in the office, think about your family, friends, and colleagues who you're close with. That is the beauty of being in Type 3s, MARPATs, affiliated with and alongside the DoD. No better friend, no worse enemy, right? There's no reason to do any of this stuff alone. There's a quote from Ted Lasso, one of my favorite shows, that resonates well here. And it's, there's something worse. I promise you there's something worse out there than being sad. And that's being alone and being sad. Again, the fact that you're in uniform, affiliated with or alongside the DoD, you never have to be alone. What that means is we have to break ourselves down a little bit every once in a while, right? Show that vulnerability. It will help you, and you don't know who else it may help. What's really fascinating, so I failed to mention this earlier on, and I apologize, but when you look at the stress response, most people know adrenaline and cortisol, right? Adrenaline's the energy, the driver, cortisol is the regulatory aspect of our body, right? What a lot of people don't know is oxytocin is also released as part of our stress response. Oxytocin is nicknamed the hug drug or the cuddle drug. It's released upon physical contact like a hug. It's a good nickname, but I feel like it kind of does it a disservice because it's way more important than that. Oxytocin being part of our stress response means our pituitary gland pumps this thing out just as much as it would adrenaline and cortisol. But more oftentimes than not, it's under-leveraged. Oxytocin is driving us to seek connection, to reach out, ask for help. It increases our empathy, our ability to recognize when someone else may need help. But when we become overwhelmed with stress, me included at times, what do we typically do? We withdraw, we isolate. And when we do that, we are going against our biological protective factor that is driving us to seek connection. We need to get a little bit better at that. That's a cultural thing, right? And that starts with us as individuals being vulnerable enough to break ourselves down and have these hard conversations. What's even more interesting about oxytocin is your heart actually has receptors for the hormone. And it's reparative in nature. So the more you reach out to help yourselves or help others, the more this hormone binds to the heart, is reparative in nature, actually helps you recover from stress-induced damage and can make you more resilient. So my challenge to you, and a challenge we had at our clinic through our market general, is one of her mindfulness engagements, is if there's a friend or family member you haven't talked to in a while, maybe give them a call on the way home. That way, when you need them, if you need them, you have that relationship. Or if they need you, they're comfortable enough to reach out. You never know where those conversations may lead. So that's the commitment side. Now I want to talk about, that's the connection side. Now I want to talk about commitment. To quote Denzel Washington, it's the commitment that gets you started. It's the consistency that gets you there. These things take practice, right? The National Science Foundation in 2005 published some research that showed on average humans have about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of those thoughts are negative. 90% of those thoughts are repetitive. We are influenced day in and day out by the same repetitive negative thoughts. But it doesn't have to be that way. Remember, you control how you think about things. That's a habit you can change. It takes commitment to cultivate this challenge mindset. You have to practice through routine stress, right? So that way, when you need it, where your stress is elevated or it's a bigger problem you face in life, you've got the reps and sets in order to do it effectively. I'll give you an example of how I cultivated this outside of public speaking. The next thing I say is partially true and partially a joke. If no one laughs in the room, for virtual people, I just want them to know that. I am from New York, Long Island, as Chief said, and by nature, I am a better driver than everybody in this room and most people in the state of Maryland, this kind of tri-county area. And I live in Calvert County. I was previously stationed at BUMED, and I used to drive on the Beltway every day, most days. And man, did I put myself through the ringer, all because of the way I was choosing to think and react. So I let other people's behavior dictate and control how I felt and how I responded. And through the studying of stress and knowing this research, I made it a point to challenge myself every time I was on the road. I learned how to let things go. I don't know if the person's cut me off as a children who's sick or got some bad news otherwise or whatever's going on in their world, but it doesn't matter to me. As long as I'm safe, I'm good, right? Why put myself through a physiological response? Why think negatively about something I can't control? And at this point in 2024, not perfect yet, but I feel like I could not care less about what other people do on 3 Notch Road or wherever else. It doesn't bother me at all. I sit in traffic at the gate. I don't get bent out of shape about that stuff anymore. Why? What's the point, is what I ask myself. I actually tell myself, don't be an idiot, but not the best construct. But it works for me. You have to challenge this stuff. That's what I'm getting at. In addition to practicing the challenge mindset, you have to cultivate relationships, right? You have to stay engaged. That's why the challenge is on your way home or at some point throughout the day or evening. Call someone. Stay in touch, right? These are the things you have to practice. This is the grit side of mental health. It's not just days or weeks or months, it's years. This is ongoing, life enduring in order to keep you healthy, well, and responsive, right? All of these things, those 3 C's, feed into control, which is arguably what we want most as humans. And when we feel most uncomfortable, when we feel like we're losing it, right? These are the basics. If you can practice these things, it will ultimately give you the sense that you are in more control. Control is the idea of sticking with things, no matter how hard it may be. Not avoiding, but leaning in, right? I'm talking about everyday mental health, right? Everyday stress. Leaning into it, because you will not be able to solve every problem you face in life. That's a fact, and that's okay. But you still have the opportunity to learn and grow. You still have the opportunity to improve the quality of your life and the quality of those and the quality of lives of those around you, right? You cannot fix every problem, but you can still cultivate a positive environment to increase the chance and success of responding effectively. That is the main message I wanted to convey here today. Do I have any additional time, Chief, or do you want to jump into the panel? So one thing I want to cover, and it's to me, it kind of brings it all home, and I don't have a visual. I'll try and paint one for you, but I think this ties it all together. I want you to picture an energy battery, right? You, like anything else, need to be charged. You, like anything else, have withdrawals in life, right? My withdrawals off the top of my head are unrealistic expectations at work. Sorry, sir. Unexpected work, travel. This was more when I was at BUMED, not here at PAX. My wife's work schedule, my kids getting sick, traffic, people complaining, right? Those are my withdrawals off the top of my head. My deposits off the top of my head, things I care about, things I enjoy. Playing hockey, watching hockey, time with family, beer and wine, right? If you do it appropriately, it can be a deposit. If you use it as a coping strategy, it's a withdrawal. It's important to annotate that. Among other hobbies and interests, right? When you look at the difference between those two sides, there's one major difference, and it's control. How much control do I have over my work schedule in life, the Navy, my wife's work schedule in life, her job in the Navy, my kids getting sick, traffic, people who complain? Very little to no control over those things, right? Yet, as humans, where do we tend to get stuck? We look and focus upon the things we can't control. We become functionally and fixed and stuck on it because they're impacting us. But we can't necessarily do anything about it if we stare at it, right? When you look at your deposits, me watching and playing hockey, spending time with my family, friends, alone, with dogs, or whatever, I have ultimate control over those things. Sometimes we need to get out of our own way. We need to pivot away from the things we can't control and focus on what we can. That is what will ultimately give us a sense of more control, because playing hockey doesn't solve Navy-related problems, right? But it increases my capacity and bandwidth to deal with those things effectively. It increases my battery, right? If I don't do those things, to Greg's point, if I don't get off my ass and do anything, my battery is going to continue to drain, right? And then when I face either the smallest or largest stressor, it has the capacity to put me over the edge and lead me into dysfunction, right? But if you shift the focus away on the things you can control and focus on what you can create a healthier mindset. Think about that in just daily problem solving, right? If you get a problem, one of the things you can do is write down everything associated with that problem and immediately cross out anything you can't control and only focus on what you can. That is how you continue to influence things. That is how you maintain that feeling of being in control. So I hope you walk away here at least thinking or being interested in thinking differently about how you think about stress. We need to embrace everyday routine stress more. Be less afraid of it. Lean in, be engaged, and more importantly than anything else, stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. We're going to call one more audible here real quick. She brought a huge team with her, so please help me welcome Mary Veaton to the stage. Dr. Mary Veaton. She served on active duty from 1998 to 2008, and she's currently the Executive Director of Warfighter Advanced. I will talk about the program. Over to her.
All right. Thank you. Hopefully I can do this. Can you hear me? I can just yell. I was in the Navy for 22 years. I can just yell. Commander Baker, thank you for that. 4 C's, we're going to use that at Warfighter Advance, I think, in the future. Very helpful. So we have 13 people back here representing Warfighter Advance. So I hope that when you look back there and see the showing, that it screams to you that it's a great program, and people are very, very proud of the fact that they've been through it and survived. The program was founded by post-deployment veterans and mostly Navy people, a couple of gunnies, because we really felt like we needed to have a non-medical alternative. So it's okay if people want to go through a medical process to reintegrate, but they should also have the option to do something else if that's what they want. And there could be many reasons why they need to do something else. Maybe they're an aviator. Maybe they have certain reasons why they just can't present or don't feel like they can present in a mental health department. And so we wanted to be available for them. Warfighter Advance is not a treatment program. It is a training program. Training. We offer, again, a non-medical model, education, classroom education, but also what we call experiential learning. And so people who come through our program learn through a variety of experiences how to take that warfighter spirit and apply it to different aspects of their life. We have active duty people going through our program every time, reservists, also veterans of every conflict. We don't play the game of, oh, you have to be OIF, OEF. You know, we have Vietnam veterans going through, and we have people, you know, like I said, who are still serving. So a really important thing, our colleague over here mentioned how difficult it can be to access mental health care. That was one of the things that the founders really wanted to look at, is it is too hard and it takes too long. So we made the process idiot-proof. We made it officer-proof. So there is no paperwork involved in coming to Warfighter Advance. You go on the website, www.warfighteradvance.org. In the very center, there's a thing that says attend. You click on it, you register. We do not take any type of paperwork, no referrals. If you say you need to be there, then we take your word for it. You have integrity as a military member, and we're not going to take you canoeing anyway. So it's hard work, and it's really, really rewarding stuff. There is no cost whatsoever, door to door, whether you are on active duty, whether you are a reservist, whether you are a veteran. So a command can send a military member to Warfighter Advance on no cost orders. We will take over everything. Room, board, tuition, materials, and flights. We have people coming from Puerto Rico, Hawaii, Europe, NATO, Canada. So we take over all of those costs. We are in the back, and the reason we are here is because we want to answer your questions. So if you have questions, there's practically enough of us to give you like one-on-one attention. But when the program is over, please wander on back. Just to make it clear that we are color-coded. Again, this is all officer-proof. So if you're wearing gray, it's haze gray and underway. If you are green side, we put you in red. That's your Marine Corps. If you are wearing the blue color there, you are in the Air Force. If you are wearing orange, you are in the Coast Guard. And if you're wearing green, you are in the Army. That's kind of a no-brainer. So if you want to pick a particular service to answer your questions, we're all back there and we're ready to go. Officer, enlisted, all over the map. Okay, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. B. Feel free to stay on stage if you would like. This is our opportunity. So at this time, I'd like to welcome up the participants for the Q&A panel. This is where the crowd gets to interact. So Fleet family, Greg, come on up. If you want anyone to join you, we got chairs for the panel. There's a Facebook Live feed, PS1. We'll monitor that for us. At this time, does anyone have any questions from the crowd while we're waiting for Facebook? You don't have to talk on the mic. I will reiterate your question for you. Don't be scared. Come on up. Do you want to use the mic? Be my guest. Okay. Yes. Yeah, Captain Price.
Captain Jordan, I had a question for you, if that's all right. I wanted like your insight more on like the air traffic control community and sort of the relationship with that and mental health. I was just wondering if in your experience, you ever ran into a problem with like a stigma of people going for mental health or suicide awareness and that being a problem with their training or even like endangering their job prospects.
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
So as Chief mentioned in my bio that I joined the Navy in 1986 and as an air traffic controller. I spent 16 years as an enlisted air traffic controller. And during that time, there was certainly a stigma associated to anything mental health related. Again, as an air traffic controller, as a pilot, in certain fields, there was always the stigma that if you felt like you needed some type of intervention or you could not handle the stress or you needed help navigating through those stressors, it was certainly viewed negatively. I believe the Navy has made a huge shift in how we view it. And we understand that our sailors from sometime in periods in their lives are going to need help. And now we are in a phase of, which I am very glad to see and to be a part of, is that we are encouraging people to get that help so that they can get back into the fight. We're encouraging people to take care of both their mental, their spiritual, their physical health in all aspects, right? Holistically, we want a warfighter that's ready to go on all levels. And I believe that paradigm has shifted to more of this approach that we're talking about. And this is why we are partnering and collaborating with our community partners, as well as our chaplain, our medical facilities, and even non-medical, as Ms. Beaton just talked about, right? Is to understand that there are resources available to you. We are addressing those stigmas that has been previously associated with going to get that mental health, and we're supporting our teammates, our co-workers, our family members to go out there and seek the help, but also support them through that recovery process. It doesn't mean just because you go to mental health that all of a sudden you cannot continue to serve. I was one of those people because of a sexual assault that happened earlier in my career. I had to seek that help. And so I was able to go through that recovery process because of the support that I had, but it came also with some impact at work that I was still able to overcome. So if you're feeling like, hey, this is a stigma associated with it, I am challenging my leaders in the room, on virtually, as well as in the wardroom, right? We are the ones that are responsible for getting rid of that stigma and encouraging and supporting our service members to go and get the help that they need so that they can come back whole and continue to provide the support that we need to have the war fighters ready to go. Does that answer your question? Okay. And if you find that you're having those challenges within your place of work, please come and talk to me, okay? Because I still have connections in the air traffic control world, and as an officer, I still have those connections as well, and we can address that issue and make sure that you're getting, or you or your coworker, family members are getting the help that they need. That's the most important, okay? Is taking care of our sailors, and that should be our number one priority.
Great discussion. Anyone else? Just the one question.
Chief, if you don't mind, the chaplain, do you mind talking about some of the resources that are available? I know you and I have had a lot of discussions on this, but I'm not sure that as a group that they are understanding all of the resources that we have that are underutilized or may not be taken advantage of because of lack of knowledge.
For those on Facebook, we are going to have whichever one you're more comfortable with. The chaplain to speak on resources that are available for suicide prevention awareness and those types of things. Over to you, Chaps.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. I was actually going to ask the question, well, what can the chaplain do to support this, right? And I'm the chaplain, so. Again, Chaplain Alvarado here. I'm the base chaplain. And a little bit of my background, just I spent a year doing a residency at a mental health hospital where I was mainly in charge of an adolescent, young adult unit. In a lot of what I saw there or supported was a lot of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. So I believe that obviously I'm a chaplain, right? God prepared me to do this type of work, supporting our service members that go through suicidal ideation or having suicidal thoughts. So and now, how can I utilize the chaplain, right? What can the chaplain do? So one of the things we do as chaplains is facilitate or support the free exercise of religion, right? And while not everybody may be religious, I think we all are in one way or another spiritual, right? We all have a soul, and the Navy has been pushing this new initiative called Warrior Toughness. So if you've been through boot camp recently in the last 3-4 years, this is a new initiative that focuses on the war fighters' physical aspect of life, the mental, and the soul, so the spirit. And this is good and great because the service is finally paying attention to this area that was kind of like being neglected before. As in when we're about to deploy, we make sure that our physical is good to go, right? That we made a PRT, that our mental health is good to go too. But now we want to make sure that the spirit, the soul of the warfighter is good to go to, as well. So there's a term called spiritual readiness that we as chaplains are kind of like supervising or providing. So one of the things we do is provide religious services for those that have some type of faith background, right? And in this case, I'm a Protestant chaplain, so I provide either religious services, Bible studies, devotionals that are for Protestants, but also facilitate for the free exercise of religion of every service member. Actually, everybody that has base access. So, and why is this important? Because we believe, actually, it's in studies, right? The importance of spirituality in people's lives, and also the importance of religious practices, how it has an impact on the well-being of people. So when you come to us, many times people feel hopeless, right? People feel that they have lost meaning to life, and religion or faith many times addresses that aspect of meaning, of hope. And you come to me, I'm not going to be preaching to you, but I'm going to be walking with you. So I get sailors that are from different faith backgrounds, right? Either Muslims, Buddhists, or even atheists. And the question is, how does a Christian chaplain support somebody that is from a different faith? So rest assured that I'm not going to try to convert you, because many people think, right, that I'm going to try to push my agenda. I do have find hope in the faith, in the Christian faith, but also I believe that your faith that you adhere to, or your religion, provides some sort of faith, right? I may not know what it is, but we can walk together and we can explore that, right? So coming to the chaplain doesn't mean that I'm going to be running my agenda, but just I'm gonna walk with you, right? See if there's something within your religious tradition, your religious faith, that you can cling on to, and start walking together, or finding the support that you need. So as I said, we provide religious services, devotionals, but also we support through different programs, such as Safe Talk, Assist, which both of them are suicide prevention trainings. We are actually pushing one that I believe it's really, really, really cool. It's called Arsenal, and it's a stress management and resiliency building training that is about 3 hours, and it will be offered next week at the Religious Program Center, Building 401, March 27th from 9 to noon. And basically, you do an assessment, an online assessment, and it tells you where you are in 7 different areas as an individual, such as either physical health, nourishment, kind of what you eat, social, finances, whatnot, and it gives you this result, and then we go over it through the training and provide you with the resources to improve them and get, to be kind of like 100%. So, and that this program Arsenal, it's called, it's more on the prevention side. So as I said, we offered, we support Safe Talk, Assist, which are more in the intervention part of suicide. But also we ask the questions: how do we keep service members or people from falling in that river of suicidal ideation or suicide thoughts, right? So that's why we are focusing on prevention. How do we make sure people are good to go 100% before they get in there, right? So Arsenal is a very good program that we want to put out there. Also, there are, I was just talking to some of the chiefs there. There is, for those that are, actually, I mean, anybody can go. The Billy Graham Association has a retreat center for military. If either you're active duty or reservist, twice a year they offer a military retreat for service members, right? And it's an all expenses paid 2-day, I think, event, and then they have, obviously it's a Christian organization, but you don't have to be Christian or religious to go. You go and they give you a room. They provide you with 3 meals a day, and it's in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina. So it's out there for you. It's underutilized. I've gone again several times. It's beautiful. It's awesome, and you get to connect with other service members from different branches, and it's a place to get encouraged, right? Get motivated and relax. Another program out there is Officers Christian Fellowship. That again, they have retreats all the time. If you happen to be Christian or Protestant or religious, but again, you don't have to be religious to go to those programs. They are there to help us as we support our military branches. Also, as I said, we do a lot of counseling, and our counseling, it's confidential. And this is a tricky question, right? What is the one thing we are required to disclose, chaplains? Nothing? Good. It's confidential. It's confidential. So you can come to us. It's non-medical, non-clinical counseling. So we offer it, right? It's pastoral counseling. But guess what? You can come to us and rest assured that you can share whatever you're going through, whatever you have in your mind, heart, or soul, and we'll stay with us. You don't have to worry about being removed from your flight status or your security clearance being at risk, or your chain of command knowing your business. We don't disclose anything, and we are not required nor forced to disclose. So that means that you can, again, freely and openly share whatever is in your mind. So that's another thing. And most of the times you can get in to see us same day. We'll adjust our schedules to make sure that you're taken care of. Just like this morning, somebody texted me, "Hey, I would like to talk to you." I said, like, "Well, can you meet at 1400 today, right?" And I said, like, "Yes." So there's no waiting list. So we'll find you the help, and if I cannot talk to you, I'll get another chaplain on the phone to talk to you. But we're here to go, ready to go. Am I talking too much? No. So am I forgetting something else? I know we do so much stuff. And as I said, we have actually a service, a religious Easter service on the 31st at 10:30, and I put that out there because I believe, right, like practicing your faith, practicing being holding to the tenets of your faith brings that spirituality nourishes you, and I encourage everybody, right? If you haven't connected with your faith tradition, either come to talk to me, see how we can support you to reconnect, or just encourage you to practice, right? Some sort of a mindfulness, spirituality that will bring you up, right? That will give you that motivation. Remember your purpose, meaning in life, kind of like what hope you have for life, and that's, I'm passionate about that. And as I said, I have experience in this topic, so I can guarantee you that you will come into a non-anxious, non-judgmental place, and you will be taken care of. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Chaps. So we got some questions in from Facebook. First up for Lieutenant Commander Baker. What are the checks and balances for medical to ensure service members are receiving the correct dosages on medications?
Hey, I appreciate the question. The easy answer is I'm not a prescriber, so I can't answer that. But when you look at being referred for medication management, you typically use your primary care as the first line of defense, depending on what the issue is. If it's serious mental illness, you'll probably go to psychiatry first. But for routine mental health, we leverage primary care first. You typically go there for a trial of medication 2 or 3 times because you don't often get it right the first time. We could start the same thing and have very different responses. You can't predict or control that. It's the onus is on the patient to communicate that in follow-up, whether something is working or not. And then primary care would make adjustments. If that works, great. If it doesn't, then you're looking about getting elevated up to psychiatry. Not all mental health conditions require medication. There are plenty of things that we can solve therapeutically, and while I appreciate that may take more time, it's what can be best. So we just have to make sure that we balance, desire for short-term fixes versus long-term gain.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it. I have more Facebook questions. Is there anything from the crowd before I have my next one? Okay, feel free to chime in. The next question is for Dr. Veaton. Do commands typically support service members who wish to attend warfighter events?
So the short answer is yes. We have never had a command on this base turn anyone down. We have people coming from all over CONUS and, like I said, Europe. It's usually once the command's questions are answered, they're very supportive of people coming, but certainly on the Naval Air Station at Pax River, we have never had a command say no.
Thank you. Still nothing from the crowd? Okay. Fleet and Family Support Center up next. Are counselors available for members who have suicidal thoughts, and will they take priority to eliminate wait times for counseling?
Yeah, so I'm a clinical counselor at Fleet and Family. We do walk-in hours. And if you need to be referred to behavioral health, we work closely with Lieutenant Commander Baker to get you over there. And if you are seen for a crisis and you are appropriate for Fleet and Family, you can kind of skip our intake process and just continue with that counselor. So we make sure that you have continued services and there aren't any lapses.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You can walk into behavioral health anytime, any day during business hours. You do not have to go through primary care first. Referrals not required. We had 5 walk-ins yesterday. With the Brandon Act especially, you can come and access care at any time you feel it's necessary. We will put you through a triage appointment. We will assess risk, among other things. And from that point, we will determine what your best route for care is. That may be with us in the clinic, depending on the severity of the issue and the risk. But our job is to leverage the full continuum of care in an effort to improve access to care. So if we feel like you're a lower level of care, if it's military family life stress that doesn't meet the threshold for true mental illness, we'll probably try and leverage military family life counselor, Fleet and Family Support, Military One Source, or non-medical resources otherwise.
Sir, is MilConnect a part of that as well? MilConnect? Can they log in to MilConnect and get services that way as well?
I have no idea.
Okay. Thanks.
I don't know if that's in MilConnect, but like for Military One Source, you just go on the Military One Source website. There's a chat function. You can call the number. They set you up with a provider they have a contract with out in town for non-medical counseling. So the SecNav's policy is no wrong door, which means you can walk into any resource that you want. Our job and what we need to do integration-wise is make sure we leverage the full continuum of care. So just because you walk into Fleet and Family First or our clinic first, we will assess you, we will triage you, and we will make sure that we get you to the right level of care at the right time. That is our job. That's something that we have to take ownership over in an effort to ensure that we are maximizing the full continuum of care to improve the overall access to care.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add just one quick note to actually testify pretty much that Fleet and Family Service Center does work exactly as advertised. I had a sailor that contacted me last year following a suicide prevention and awareness training, and he acknowledged that he needed some help, didn't know how to go about doing it. All I did was walk over to Fleet and Family Service Center. I have a service member that needs help and he needs it now. And they gave me numbers, he contacted them. I followed up with Fleet and Family Service Center as well as a member, and he was getting the continued care that he needed. So please know that this system does work. We just have to exercise it. So thank you.
I'm going to pile on the continuum of care, right? We've used that word several times here. Prevention, level of care required. So if it's not Monday through Friday and it's not 8 to 5 or whenever, know that the health hub is right outside the gate. It's free. You can go in there. They're tremendous. You can see a social worker similar. You'll get an assessment. They actually have a nurse practitioner that can prescribe if that's what's warranted. If someone's in crisis, you care yourself, a family member, or a shipmate, come visit us over in the hospital. You can come to the ED anytime, 24/7, right? We'll take care of you. We make sure we work well with these folks. Team effort, but really no wrong door. Our doors are open. So thanks. Hey, the worst thing you do is underreact. Do nothing, not G. That's how you fly into the mountain.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Anything from the crowd?
This is for Baker. If you were just talking to like a foreman or a dog or a medical, what is the confidentiality like clause? Because like the chats, basically like what we're changing and no.
Before you start, sir. So for Facebook, the question was, what's the confidentiality level when you go into behavioral health and have a conversation?
Or just in general. Yeah. So for medical and mental health especially, the hallmark is confidentiality and the presumption is non-disclosure, right? That is different in the civilian sector versus psychological health in the military. DOD 649008 is command notification requirements with the purpose of decreasing stigma. There are 9 criteria that we would have to break that confidentiality. The big 3 are risk to self, risk to others, risk to the mission. All conversations that should happen as part of that encounter to help you understand if we feel like you're going in that direction and what that would look like. That's the transparency side that needs to be increased in mental health. But then there are other ones as well, right? If you go inpatient, we obviously have to tell your command that because you're not showing up to work. If you're going to a substance abuse treatment, again, you'll be away from work, so we have to let the command know. They have to coordinate. If you're special personnel like PRP, there's a mechanism where we work with medical to alert them. But just by going to mental health, it doesn't mean you lose your PRP status or anything like that, or other circumstances. Otherwise is a nice one that's kind of vague. But the big 3 that we see are imminent risk to self, others, and the mission.
Awesome. Anyone on the panel? Yeah, go ahead.
And one thing I tell when I talk to people is your life is more important than confidentiality, right? If you're at risk, if you feel that you are at risk of suicide and you're concerned about your command knowing, your life is more important, right? We care about you. think we all here will agree that there's more to life than the Navy, or than your job, or than your clearance, and there's hope. So don't let that hold you from reaching out for help, from knocking on doors. Right? I get to talk to people that I so focused on that. I cannot share this because I'll lose my job. But what is it? How good is it to keep a job if your life is at risk, right? So your life is way more important. And as you talk to others, right, when you support and let them know that your safety is first. And it's way more than your family cares for you and your kids. Jobs come and go, right? But we only have one life. Thank you.
Hi, all. I'm Russell Kane Sauer. I don't have a question, but I do want to talk about my history here at Pax River. I retired out of HX 21 in 2010. I was a chief petty officer. I stood up the suicide prevention program before I retired. I was motivated to do so because my uncle killed himself at the Vietnam Memorial Wall, September 16th, 1984. He survived Ashawa Valley in Vietnam. His company was overran, and he and about 5 guys survived out of his whole company of about 160 people. He came home with a lot of survivor guilt, and like I said, I was 16 years old when he killed himself. He was a homicide detective at Washington, D.C. He was married to a doctor with NIH, kidney research, had 2 kids. And at 16 years old, I'm thinking this man's he's a hero. He survived Ashawa Valley and, and has this great, tremendous life. And he flew into Texas where I was living and stayed with us for a week. And I knew something was definitely off because he never came home. He would meet my grandparents in Florida, from Texas. So they would vacation every year. And him being home, something was way off. And he and my father, we went out every night and drinking. And my dad was a Vietnam vet as well. He was just downloading everything he needed to download before he made that decision. And that decision was when he flew back to Washington, D.C., that he was going to end his life. And in reflection of reading the newspaper article that I had transcribed, I've read that over and over again. And just like when he was in Vietnam, when he had lost all his fear, when all his fear was gone, he had taken his rifles and they were going to bludgeon the enemy to death with their rifles because they had no more ammunition. So when the fear was gone, he had made that decision that no matter what, he's going to fight to the death. But when he left Texas, that fear was gone because he had decided to end his life. So there was a tell there. There was a sign. And I mentioned my uncle because that's what got me involved in suicide prevention, to the detriment of my own mental health. I retired in 2010. By the time 2019 rolled around, I was ready to end my life. I was self-medicating. I was doing all the wrong things. I've been married 37 years. I'm still married to the same woman. I have a 19-year-old son, and I was destroying that, and that was destroying me as well. Talking about reaching out and asking for help. I was at PMA 299, when I was on a dirt bike accident, and I ripped my arm apart and had to go through surgery, and nothing happened. So physically, I destroyed my body, but I kept working left-handed, right? I didn't lose my job. I didn't lose my secret clearance. I didn't lose my anything, right? I kept working. Well, same thing happened whenever I finally reached out and said, hey, I need some mental help. And I went through the branch clinic here at Pax River. And Pax River suggested, and I told them, I said, here's my criteria. I don't want a doctor that's going to put me on medications, because I had dealt with medication model with my wife, and that nearly destroyed us. That was a very, very hard time in both of our lives when she was medicated, which, by the way, the doctor that had her medicated, over-medicated, ended up taking his own life because of his mental health issues. So I was deeply afraid of the medical model of mental health. So I said, I need help. Who do I talk to? And they sent me to talk to Dr. Mary Beaton. Through my company is who I even asked, through my contractor, right? So nothing's happened to my clearance. Matter of fact, because I've been open about my mental health issues, things have actually excelled for me at work. I'm trusted because people know I'm going to tell you when I need to tap out and I need a break. Does that make sense? Okay. I want to make sure you guys know that you really can reach out and ask for help.
Thanks, Kate. Last chance for anybody in the crowd.
My question is for anybody on the panel, but how, as a mental health advocate, if you ask someone if they're going to commit suicide and they tell you that they're not, but you still think that they might, what else can you do for them?
What a great question. There's no simple answer. How long do I have? No.
About 5 minutes.
No. This is important. There's so many things, and you've heard different people talk about them. The chaps, Commander, Mary, and even Kane. So somebody made a remark. I'm thinking about it, or I plan. So here's the difference, and I think Doc talked about it. There's levels, and this is a gut one, but don't feel like what you need to do is be there and be supportive and encourage them. If you really think that they're in danger, then call 988, call 911, take them to the hospital. But it's not uncommon that people will make that remark and then say, I would never do that. And that's kind of the business that all of us are in. But there's training, there's education, and there's criteria, and there are questions. There's a difference whether somebody says something and then whether they have intent, or they have a plan, or they have access, or they've had a previous attempt, or they have supports, or they're isolated and alone. I mean, so that is kind of that's a lot of criteria, but there are trained professionals available to help you with that, to include 911, 988, text, call, whatever it might be. What you should do with them, if you really feel in your gut that stay with them. Don't go, I'm glad I had that conversation, see you, and go. What we do, if somebody's going to come, I'll just say what we do, because I think it's probably similar in different places. If we have a patient that comes to the emergency department, either they self-refer or somebody witnessed something, somebody cared, and they called and had a court order, and they come in, and we have documentation on what that looks like there. They will be seen. It's not a unilateral decision. There's an emergency room doc, there's a nurse, there's a mental health professional. At a minimum, once we do that in-depth assessment, we're going to do a safety plan with them. Safety plan, kind of, we heard a little bit about that today. It's, what's your cause of stress? What are your triggers? How do you cope? What supports do you have? Personal supports. I ask, do you believe in God? I ask, what do you care about? What's life worth living for? I ask about, do you have a plan? Do you have an intent? Is there a family history? I can go on and on, but then what resources do you have? There's 2 money questions on there. Actually, there's 1. What's the most important thing in your life worth living for? If people have a hard time answering that, that's a money question. That's a kind of a go, no go for me. So that's a little bit of it, but they're going to get a safety plan. And then depending on where that individual is, you share that with them and go, you're not alone. I mean, there's a couple of mantras here. None of us here are perfect. You're not alone. There's help. And sometimes people just need to hear that. It's a great question. It's something that people ask or comment on frequently, and it's not a simple answer. I hope I gave you a little bit of the framework. I'd be happy to talk to you more individually and give you some more stuff. But thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on the panel have anything they'd like to add before we wrap things up? Go ahead.
So ASSIST, which is the 2-day suicide intervention program that we offer, ASSIST would say to trust them. Like even though your gut says, now you're lying to me, trust them because they are probably testing the waters to see if they can truly trust you. So by you trusting them, they realize that you're trustworthy. And then they may be able to open up about that. So trust them, but stick with them, right? If you're there present physically, continue listening, and then they will eventually, I think, open up. And I say that because I get that all the time. I get the no, are you thinking about suicide? No. And okay, good. So we continue the conversation, and later on, they say that they are thinking or whatever. So I think many times they're testing the waters to see if they can trust you with this big burden they have. Thank you.
Don't go too far, Chaps. If you don't mind delivering the benediction.
Oh, yes.
And we'll wrap up and close. For everybody that's still sticking around, please feel free to see the tables, the individual tables around. Get some food if there's still some food left over. Thank you all for participating, coming and spreading the awareness for suicide awareness. Like I said earlier, today's event was dedicated to raising awareness. You learned some resources, and most importantly, share the word that no one's alone. Over to you, Chefs.
All right, let's pray. Gracious and merciful God, we thank you for this beautiful time that you gave us. A beautiful afternoon of questions, answers, fellowship, food, and resources. God, we thank you for everybody that made this event possible. We thank you for all the volunteers, all the presenters, all the different organizations that came together to provide this place where we could gather more knowledge, information, on how to keep others safe. So we pray that as we go our ways back to work or to the office or wherever we came from, that you will guide our steps and that you will continue giving us the strength we need to support each other in this suicide journey. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you everyone for your time. Be safe out there.